Hey, good afternoon and welcome to Mindful Live Hot Sun version. Welcome, one and all. I am your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you for joining me. It is the 3rd of the brand new month, September. Hey, I like being a big man because I don't have to go out in that mad traffic on this first week of school and sit down for 2 hours wasting my life. Jeez, I feel it for any of you who have to face that traffic today, yesterday. I'm just glad I wasn't one of them.
Yesterday, you know.
It wasn't bad yesterday?
No, like Nathan, you know, I work in Sugar.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So I left home later. So I was 8 o'clock on the highway. So I coming from Princeton to Sando traffic. So I was like, okay, this highway traffic about to be real pressure because people know this Freeport Shogunas traffic is insane. So I coming down on the highway and I just say, what is school out or something, or is school back on? Because Nathan, I didn't spend one time not moving on the highway yesterday. It was a straight shot from Sando to Shogunas.
Lucky you.
And I'm like, that's insane.
That's very lucky. Listen, all right. Let me tell the YouTubers, those who may be tuning in over on YouTube, what I've been looking at and talking about and thinking about today. Good afternoon, Joy. Good afternoon. Hit that like button, double tap this screen. Yeah, boy, Willie Bang, we out in the daytime. We out in the daytime, proving we are not gargoyles or vampires out there. Double tap that screen, hit that like button once you are tuning in. If you are tuning in on YouTube, to make sure you are hitting that like button. As I was saying, I was over on this toxic whole of a social media site X, and you know, you really see some marvelous things out there because you could fall into little bubbles of thought and echo chambers where people talking about things in a matter-of-factly way because they are in their little bubble, and you get a glimpse and you're like, these people are insane. You know, I was looking at some of the communists out there on X, and they were talking about inheritance taxes and the idea of inheritance and whether it's a good thing, whether it's a bad thing. The idea being that when you make money and you give it on to another generation, it's unfair. It's unfair to those who didn't get, those whose parents didn't have a lucrative enough career or whatever. They find it unfair. And it started off with this little comic picture. If you're on my YouTube, you would see it over there. Twitter is the worst, really bang. Yeah. But it's good for what it's good for. I'll pull it up over on my YouTube if you are viewing out there over on YouTube. Hey, where are you? Right, a little comic. Let's see, 4 people sit down at a board game playing, and one person says, let's see, I got 31, you have 28, 35 for you, and the 4th person was like, I've got 10,019. And everyone else sighs, and he's like, hey, add another 20 to everyone and me, and everyone else hates the game. Basically, the point being that if one person starts off the game with like a heaping lot more than the other people, it's unfair. And how cruel is it? How cruel is it that some people start off the game with much more than others? And many people were saying the way to solve that cruelty is by taxing. So basically, when you live your life and you come upon the point of inheritance, leaving what you leave for your children, some people believe that basically all of that should be taxed, given to the state, so that the state could distribute it in the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Works. However, the state uses the money to best distribute it to make sure everyone gets a nice, fair life. Everyone gets everything fair and proper. And the response someone had to this is perfect analogy for how they view taxes, closed system, direct competition with everyone. Your neighbor doing well doesn't improve your life. One pie does not grow. Wealth is not created, only taken. They're upset someone has more than them. They think that's unfair, so they'll build a system to take what you have. And that's a big idea of communism, where they believe that if somebody has a lot, they have a lot because they took that from someone who had less. So the person who has more, the best thing to do with them to make the system fair is to decrease theirs and give it to those who have little bit. But that shows an incredible lack of understanding of the whole economic system. The economic system with the free market and all of that, the idea of that, and I say this regularly, it's one of the favorite quotes of a familiar of mine: the rising tide raises all ships. That's the idea of the free market economy. The rising tide raises all ships. So your neighbor doing well will benefit you in the long run, because they add more to the market. Them doing well doesn't take away from you. You do not have less money because Bill Gates is a billionaire. Bill Gates being a billionaire actually benefited you. That's how we got cheaper personal computers. If the government in the early 90s took all of Bill Gates' money as it increased at the beginning, we would have gotten no revolutionizing in the personal computer industry, and the US government would have gotten more money to bomb more civilians around the world, because that's what they do when they get money. It's not like the government drives innovation of any kind.
I mean, but data, I mean, if I really look at this thing, I don't think socialist people care. I think they would actually want the computers to be free as well too.
Yeah.
They would be like, what? So what? We want the computers free too. You know what's funny? Socialist people believe in free labor.
Exactly. The question I always ask is, how is food made? How do we get food? Like, that's where it all goes down to, you know. Like, bro, they think that it's unfair. And listen, you could look on X and they're saying that all over. There are socialists out there that think it's unfair that you must labor in order to live. How unfair is it that people must work, otherwise they can't eat? Like, bro, where does the food come from? In order to get food, people must put labor out. So in order for you to get food, you got to work. Nobody tells you you have to go in a factory and work for a millionaire and let him pay you for your time. You could go out in the forest and dig yam and eat the yam, you know. You could go and live on hunter-gatherer lifestyle. It may be a bit more, actually it might even be easier now.
No, you see, the thing is, Nathan, is, I had this discussion probably a year ago with a woman, and we was discussing masculine and feminine. We was discussing patriarchy and matriarchy, and she's a proponent of matriarchy being that of the standard that was before patriarchy existed, which is crazy. If we ever want to believe such things, if women were powerful like that, how did women lose their position? But that's another thing entirely. But her stance is that America runs on a patriarchy, and the rest of the world, which is not the first world, runs on a communal, matriarchal, matrilineal type thing. And she used my country in order to do this because we'll have the discussion, right? And she was like, I am not able to pick a mango in America and just eat it right there and drop the seed on the ground. I am able to. And I'm like, wait. You think that's how we, I mean, yes, for some part, yes, we could gather food like that. But, no, just because I have the ability to pick a mango and eat it doesn't mean I live in a matrilineal, patriarchal society.
Here's what she's talking about there, and this is the problem with the suggestion that many of them suggest in the first place. She's talking about a high trust society. And there are high trust and enclaves in the United States. You go to a 99% white Catholic Irish little nook somewhere in the United States, and everyone in there walks into everyone's yard and picks their fruit and lives like that. You go into a homogeneous society anywhere in the world, and it's going to be more like that. High trust societies exist. And to some extent, Trinidad had a bit more high trust in the earlier, more recent, out of colonial times. That's why we lived in a more free with the fruits and all of that kind of business. But that has nothing to do with patriarchy and matriarchy. That's rubbish. A matriarchy cannot work because it cannot defend itself. That's all there is to it. It's similar to what the communists don't like. They find that life is unfair. It's unfair that people inherit things from... Let me read some of this thread for you. Someone responding said, inheriting stuff is obviously unfair and not meritocratic. Another person responds, why is it not fair? The person responds, the person benefiting did nothing to earn it. Response, they are their father's child. How is it unfair for a parent to give their child a gift? The person responds, because the beneficiary did nothing to earn it. You can say it isn't wrong, but it is unfair. They are their parents' child is the response to that. Again, right, so they didn't do anything to create that state of affairs. And that's the problem many people have. So the child didn't do anything to actually make this benefit happen. So for them to get the benefit, it's unfair. The response someone has to that is, children are not randomly appointed to parents. My child could only be my child. My child could only exist because me and my wife, well, we know what happened there, and the genetics fuse, and that's the only way this little creature exists. It doesn't exist independent of anybody else. So, in terms of biology, and this is the strange thing to me, it's like, this argument sounds like a religious argument where people are arguing that souls are randomly distributed at birth so that each soul should have a zero start when they come. But if you are talking about this from a scientific point of view, where you believe that all animals, all living beings evolved and have progressed to this point through evolution, the idea of that is through lineage. The idea of that is through genetics. Everything you get is inherited. And the idea is that you want to pass the most down through your inheritance. What insanity, how else do you expect that to go? And, you know, I could go down on this communist road for a while, but I wanted to draw that over to something in Trinidad here, because the idea of many communists is that the way to do this fairly, and this is beside whether it's moral for a parent to give their child goods. That's beside that. The idea that they have is that the state, if the state gets all of that resources, they will best distribute it. And here's the thing. Even if it was the moral thing to take the money from the person who wants to give it to their children, the state doesn't distribute it any better. It would have been better you leave it with the wealthy person and hope they give some charity, and that by taking care of their children, they do their societal duty. That would have a better result, because here's how the state uses a lot of these resources. Ex-NAP's principal gives government failing grade on education. Dr. Michael Dowlat, former principal of Naparima, appeared at a UNC briefing to lament the physical state of schools ahead of this school's opening plus staff shortages. Hossain said it was Dowlat's maiden UNC appearance. Dowlat, a former chairman of the Accreditation Council, also alleged a worsening of pupils' exam results in both the SCA and CSEC exams from 2015 to present. He cited newspaper reports of both tutor and NPTA alleging they had heard little or nothing from the Ministry of Education about school repairs due in the vacation. On the eve of the reopening of schools, many principals have indicated that little or no work has been done to prepare schools for reopening. When $20 million has been allocated for vacation repairs, one must ask whether the priority in education changed. Is this sufficient? Listen, it's kind of marvelous to me that our wealthy country that is filled with contractors to the brim somehow is unable to fix school buildings every year before the known time that school is going to reopen. Everybody knows. From 3 years old all the way up till you reach senile and you forget what's going on. We know when school opens. Early September. Everybody know this. How you trying to tell me? Listen, we know how long it takes to build a wall. We know how long it takes to install the electrical. How are you telling me year in, year out, we can't get simple, straightforward repairs done before September? Every year. And money is not the problem. Because the money already passed. The money already passed for the... So, here's what. Instead of you being a wealthy person and being able to keep your money and send your child to learn by mindful education, where they give your child specific learning and ensure that they excel, instead of that, you must give all of that money over to Ms. Gatsby Dolly and her ministry and hope they could reopen the schools in time.
I've always asked the question, what does the government even be doing with these funds? I be sitting down. That's like an equation I've yet to figure out. Like, where does the government allocate these funds to? Somebody tell me this. Somebody explain to me why government gets billions of dollars to spend and they just don't know how to spend. Like, somebody tell me why every government has been inefficient at spending the people's money.
Because you said it there. You said it right there. You know why? Because it's the people's money. And here's what I realized. There was at a younger stage in my life, that question used to frustrate me, and I wondered if it was a skills issue. Like, wait, all of these people so stupid, boy. Them don't know how to understand how to spend the country. But then I realized something. Most of these men, most of them are men and women, have private businesses. Here's an interesting thing. Many of the union leaders in Trinidad and Tobago that are very responsible for weighing down the labor side of things in this country to an inefficient point, they have private businesses, They understand free market economics real good. They know that if their employee in their mini-mart isn't working for more than X hours, it doesn't make sense giving them more than Y pay. Most of these government ministers and MPs have private businesses, and they know how to balance the budget on their private business. You see, the issue arises when it's not their money. This isn't any government minister's money. St. George's College doesn't belong to their private trust. They don't make more money if the school finishes on time. They don't make less money if it goes over the time. It doesn't matter. And that's the reason.
Interesting.
People spend other people's money with scant regard. That's just how it goes. And that's why my view, and many people in the free market, the view is we want to give the government minimal money, as little as possible, just to run everything that is essential, because everything more than essential, they're going to waste that money.
I agree, because I've never understood the proponents of large governments anyway, because especially in Trinidad and Tobago, like, okay, your current government, which is a centralized government, mismanages and spends money. Money could go leave in the treasury one day, and you all could say, where's 200 and something million going? And then, well, you know what we have to do? We have to give the government some more money.
That's always the thing, you know. The solution is always more money. More money. $10 million for shoddy work. St. George's College opens, but tutor complains. St. George's College Baratory opens to Form 1s and 2 students yesterday, while those Form 3 to 6 are expected to start school tomorrow. On August 30th, the Ministry of Education officially reopened the school after 22 months of closure for repairs to the school's roof, ceiling, and electrical systems. Bro, we know how to do roof. We know how to do ceilings, and we know how to do electrical. We have contractors capable of doing these things. 22 months, $10 million, and the work's still shoddy.
No, you see, to me, this is the problem, right? This is the problem I have with people who just don't understand the thing neither. Like, to me, is this right? What's the problem? Okay, if Elon Musk had a construction company in Trinidad and Tobago, what's the problem with allocating funds to Elon Musk company? You'll get a good school out of it, and he enriches himself. Why you mad your child going to Elon Musk school, learning with nice ceiling, nice hall, but you mad that he make $1 billion off it? That's insane.
Yeah.
While you sit down and talk about how Bobby Beanhead run the government inefficiently, and then want to talk about, well, he better than nothing. That makes absolutely no sense when he also enriches himself.
But you know, one of the things that leftward view of governance and society does, it plays on the natural human envy. That's what it does. It plays on the natural human envy. It's easy for us to look across and see when somebody has more than us. It's easy to see when somebody has more than you. And it's a natural human tendency to be envious. So for a political system to be created and crafted, and the lesson they tell you, the story they tell you is, anytime you have less, the reason you have less is because that person that you can look across there and see, you see how good their life is, you see how things they're enjoying, you see what they have. What they have is why you have less. Oh, that's a very tempting strategy. And here's what that does. That makes theft morally correct. Because if that person has more than me, the reason they have more than me is because something unfair happened and they took it, or their parents took it. So if I go and take it back from them, then all's fair. Because that's the only reason they have more than me in the first place. And that's why I say these commies, these dirty commies and them, you're supposed to look at them the same way you look at a neo-Nazi. If somebody comes and says the stuff where, you know, they throw out their hand and they heil who they heil, and you watch them like, what? They want to kill half the world? That's how you should view the commies too. Someone comes and tells you, well, actually I'm a communist, you know. That's a thief. That's someone who looks at what others have and think, we should take that and we would know how better to use your resources. You're a thief. And you could never convince me giving my resources to the state is the way for this to work better. Let's go. 10 million of shoddy workmanship. They also outlined a litany of woes ranging from exposed electrical wires, burglar proofing that was not properly secured. So let me tell you all, in case you don't know, when burglar proofing isn't properly secured, the burglar proofing itself is now stealable. It's now something that the thieves want. Remember those scrap iron guys? They're out there still. If your burglar proof isn't screwed down, the burglar proof itself is now something to be stolen. And going on, low hanging ceilings. Stuff still stored in boxes and seating that was to be laid out for the staff yesterday. They also pointed out that the principal was on 3 months vacation leave and the acting principal was due to retire yesterday. They felt there should be a proper process to appoint an acting vice principal and are not confident that the remaining scope of works could be done so the school could properly accommodate the remaining complement of students tomorrow. Yeah, that's how the government spends your money. And it's not just education. I live in Shogunas. They recently did over a bridge. A bridge fell down. Bro, a bridge fell down. That bridge was one of the most important back road bridges. If you know Trinidad and Tobago on a map, the entirety of Central, the guts of Central, that western part of Central, from California, come all the way up through Couva, Roystonia, Orange Valley, Perseverance, Orange Field, Bank Village, Karapichaima, Waterloo, all that area. Use that back road. And that one bridge that allows you to kind of bypass around Shogunas, around the back of Shogunas. The bridge fall. Earlier, in the first place, all these bridges going to fall. Somebody, please, let me talk to one of these engineers now, but please. Here's what they've been doing for the last 10 years on all of these small rivers and drains. They've been dredging the drain and the river, straightening the course, deepening the course, widening the course, because they're attempting to alleviate flooding somewhere upstream. But if you deepen, straighten, and widen a river, you do it on this side, and there's a bridge here, and you do it on this side. You do it on two sides of a bridge. What do you think is going to happen to that bridge? If you widen a river on the two sides of a bridge, what's going to happen to the bridge people? Like, does anybody play any kind of Jenga? You understand physics even a little bit? I'm not asking for distinction in physics, one in physics, and you do physics in kit. No, just a little physics understanding, just a little bit. If you widen the two sides of a bridge on the river, what's going to happen to the bridge? And listen, they've been doing that to every one of the water channels. And I've been asking this for over 5 years now. So wait. Can't we decide to build a broader bridge and then do this widening of the river channels? Because that wasn't the first bridge to fall in. There are about 4 bridges in Central currently falling and have fallen. And more are going to fall. The one they fix already start back falling. Because here, the river on both sides widened. The river on both sides widened, and when the bridge fell, they reconcreted the bridge, they reinforced the bridge, basically in the fallen, slumped position. So, the bridge that was, let's say, 25 feet over the lowest level of the waterway, now slumped and is 18 feet over the lowest level of the waterway. You just decreased the maximum volume of this river. Every time it runs under the bridge now, the bridge would be under even more pressure because there's even less room for all the volume of water to pass. And it's the peak of rainy season.
But you see, later we can't do that because here's the thing, right? Let's be real, right? In a setup where you're not sure to get a contract, the work will be done way better. You see, when your government, people really think that, companies that work closely with the government and the government have shares there and either is a state-owned company, people really think that's optimal or something. No, it's not. It's clearly not. We could see that. You telling me you would a local company, local construction company in Shogunas, even if they did that work, they would never get a contract again, ever. They would be out of business.
And hey, all these people know how to build bridges and stuff in it. Go in these contractors' yard. They have infrastructure all about their yard. They have ramps and stuff. They know how to build these things.
It's not another. It's just the mere fact that they know the money, sure. If I know I could walk in my house and be like, all right, food on the table, I don't worry. It will always be there.
Yeah.
So, if the government's still giving money to a big contracting company, why would they have to do proper work? I go do some work, but I still know I still get my millions, and I could go home and still live in my good house. My house I built properly.
And here's what I hate in the whole thing. The plausible deniability on all sides. Shoguana's mayor slams workmanship on newly opened bridges. The Ministry of Works and Transport has denied allegations made by Shoguana's mayor and expressed concern over recent public statements questioning the quality of work on the newly opened Bridge Bridal Road Bridge and Perseverance Road Bridge in Shoguanas. In a media release yesterday, the ministry said the comments had created a misleading narrative about its stringent certification standards for infrastructural projects, potentially causing unnecessary panic and fear. Listen, the bridge they fix down my way, as I tell you, they reinforce the bridge in its fallen state. So the bridge once was flat road driving over the drain, over the river. It's a big drain, really and truly. Driving over, you feel nothing. It's just like part of the road. Now, you drive, you drop down like 7 feet, and then you go over the bridge. That feels like that drop is going to keep increasing. That doesn't feel secure. And the road is already sinking. What are you talking? Who gave this up? I want them to call names. Put the engineer name who designed and passed these bridges, put that name in public. But they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that. It's all plausible deniability because the Shoguana's mayor is blaming the works ministry. The works ministry would say the maintenance of the bridge is really the Shoguana's borrowed duty and that. Here's the interesting thing. I wouldn't be surprised if the case is that the works ministry is in charge of dredging the rivers. So they hire their contractor friends and excavators cleaning the rivers whole year. All the rivers big, open and naked. No grass, no trees to hold the sides of the rivers, just one massive causeway heading down to the sea. But the bridges are to be maintained by local government. So central government is dredging and widening the rivers, and local government is supposed to be maintaining the bridges. But local government doesn't have the kind of resources to just ups and build a new bridge. So what are they to do while they watch as the bridge sinks and you keep dredging both sides of the river? What's to happen? Yeah, sometimes you sit online and they show you a video out of Japan and they show you a bridge in Japan collapse, and by the next 3 days it's rebuilt and you're like, why, boy?
But wait, is Japan have a centralized government?
Yeah, but they're homogenized
Right, yeah.
as that. They're extremely homogenized, so it's easier for them to do. They're an extremely homogenized society that has been in the same place, doing the same thing, believing the same thing for a very long time. So getting things done is much easier. The multiculturalism, the mixing pot, the everybody all away is one family business makes it difficult in this place. Like, I wonder this to myself. Isn't it entirely possible that a Ministry of Works that has an engineering department should have a past plan for every bridge in the country? Shouldn't they have a plan? So, okay, this bridge at this point, this Bridal Road Bridge, we have a plan for this bridge. We are monitoring it. So if it were to break down, there's just a plan to give to the contractor, and the contractor goes out there and reproduces the plan in the location. What's difficult about that? Is that impossible? We don't have enough engineers? UE has engineers graduating every day, every year. Kevon says the samurais became managers in Japan. They basically have the same culture from centuries ago. Yes. Yeah. And we don't have it.
I don't try that to be have everything. Like we have doctors, we have lawyers, we have engineers, we have everything. But let be real, right? It's the same reason. Sorry to call it. It's the same reason that we keep talking about that nobody seems to get wrong. The cronyism is just there. The cronyism lives, it thrives, and people want to talk about, well, why can't we get anything done? Why? Well, who would want to bet that the new CEO of WASA might get things actually done well from a business perspective? Not even from the country. He doesn't have a vested interest in Trinidad and Tobago necessarily, but he have a vested interest in business, and he want to make some money. But you're will be vexed because he want to make some money rather than you'll get actual efficiency from your water and sewage authority. Are you all serious? You know what people at the back of board hand who go in weeks without water would be glad that the Ghanaian CEO has given them water? Come on, please, let's be real. And for the life of me, y'all don't get it. Like I'm fine with privatizing nearly everything. Because at this point, you can get better medical care in Southern Medical than you will get in San Fernando General Hospital. And people tell people that a lot. People tell people that every day. You know what I'm saying? And
well, right now, our Prime Minister, who is our head of state, in a state where there is free medical attention, he needs a checkup. Does he go to the Eric Williams Medical Sciences Complex? No.
I think he has down there to Cuba, which Cuba have the best healthcare. Does Cuba have the best healthcare? You wanna believe so? I think big up my brethren that the only thing he do good for Cuba was invest in healthcare system of Cuba. Best thing he has ever done. The rest of Cuba is shambles, but best believe the doctors are excellent.
Our contractors will take a year or more to maintain or refurbish a bridge because money talks. Yeah.
It's still free for, but don't leave it free for.
And you see, that's my issue with what we started with. People talking about where should the inheritance go. Is it fair that a wealthy person gives their child all this money and their child gets an unfair start? Well, Paul Duncan, by the way, no, my lifetime hasn't changed. This is just the Hot Sun Live, a Hot Sun Live because I happened to be here at this time and I missed the live last night. But still getting over that. But this is the problem with it. Beside the morality of the fact that people should be able to give their children what they earn, where else would it go? What should I then give it to these people who are supposed to be our governors, who are supposed to understand how to better rule and how to better redistribute to make sure everyone gets everything? What about those poor people who don't have houses? What are we going to do about them? The government should build some houses. How should the government build houses? Well, take the money from those wealthy people who have 5, 6, 7 houses. How dare they have so many houses? That's not good. That's not good. Those landlords who could have a house and afford to have, now I have to pay them to live in a house. Housing should be a human right, so the government should build the housing. Okay, let's see how the government does on that. The never-ending towers. Work resumes 9 months after work restarted and 3 months after the projected completion date has passed. The status of Alexandria Towers, nicknamed the Edinburgh Towers and Laclave Street Triguanas, remains under construction. Bear in mind, here, how long this thing going, eh? Any 500 people in the house? Any Edinburgh 500 people in the... Anybody from 500, you all will know. Listen, if you're not a millennial and you're living in 500, like if you're a Gen Z 500 person, this building might have been there before you know yourself. It started. Initiated under the late Patrick Manning-led administration in 2005. 2005 to deliver, hear what they wanted to deliver since 2005, to deliver 118 residential apartments and 16 commercial units. They've taken basically 2 decades. And money to boot. Mind you, those 2 decades, it's not like no money was being spent and it's just, the grass was growing on the site and they did nothing. No, money was being spent. When the People's Partnership was voted into office in 2010, they took over the project. By 2011, a decision was taken by HDC to suspend the project. So there is another government took over the project and then suspended. From then to now, the towers have been in the middle of a political toing and froing, stopping and restarting. And every stop and restart is money, people. Every stop and restart. Anytime you see fellas milling around on the site, if a fella even walk on the site, put down his bag, sit down for a half hour, get back up and leave, money spent. Contractors not paying their workmen to go on a government site for nothing. They're getting money.
Of course they are.
In an interview at Express last November, Housing Minister Camille Robinson-Raggi said the targeted projected deadline for completion was May 2024 for the East Tower and the end of June 2024 for the West Tower. May, June, East and West Tower will be finished. But that's easy to say again when it's not your money. If that was Tanti Camille's money, if that was Tanti Camille building her personal residential apartment building, you think contractors would still be playing the tail on the site?
No. They would have done finished a long time. I think they would have finished it in half the time. Because
Why, since 2006 this thing finished, we would have had children born inside there making children by now. And curve on, it's the evil part of that. Mobilization and demobilization is money. Yes. And the evil part about that with government projects is government projects will mobilize to demobilize. They will mobilize a contractor to demobilize them. So they pay for the mobilization, they pay for the demobilization, and nothing went on in the in-between. They didn't even pound a nail.
Same thing went on with the Red House. Like, I remember my brother used to say every time he passed the Red House, 2 people used to be out there just walking around on the like, if we be real, okay, let me be real, right? If that was the personal residence of Bobby Bean, that stuff would have, that whole cool thing wouldn't even make a difference. And that'd be done in 5 years. It'll be finished long time.
Long time.
And when the Red House was rebuilt and the ceiling was falling on top of that as well.
And it was leaking too.
And you telling me this is the place that the same people that mismanage money have to hold parliament? This is absurd. But then again, do they even care about the building?
No, because it's not their money. It's not their money. And Nicole says Red House Reno was complex because of the specialty trades needed. Here's the thing. I agree. Yes, that's true. But that would be something that would be known ahead of hand. It's not like you wouldn't know that the Red House requires specialty trades. The Catholic Church has been doing renovations on their cathedral for years now. Have they been worried to get specialty tradesmen? Has the Catholic Cathedral suffered these setbacks? The only thing I hear them asking for is the money. That's the only thing I hear. Once they get their donations, they do their thing. They are contractors able to do those specialty trades. It's known. It's known. The thing is, many times people don't care about it because it's not their money. Another one, a flood of flood plans, but Port of Spain struggles with perennial problem. Port of Spain had many plans to deal with flash flooding over the past decades, but they have never been implemented. So admitted former mayor of the capital city, Louis Leasing, who spoke to the Express following flooding in Port of Spain last week. Another former mayor, Joel Martinez, argued that a lack of funding was the main reason why several projects to deal with flooding were never executed. Both agreed, though, that aggressive cleaning of the drains around the city was one of the short-term solutions to the perennial problem. Port of Spain floods, and the problem is money. Anybody believes that? That if somehow we were able to give the mayor and his organs a couple million more, the flooding woes of Port of Spain would be gone. Here's something I read in this article that I found interesting, talking about just the money now. Louis Leasing speaking about the terrible state of the underground drains around Independence Square. What we found annoying was that because nobody had maintained the drains in the city for a lifetime, the debris in the drains had concretized. So in many instances, it made no sense trying to clean them out. You really had to put in new drains, he said in a phone interview. So, there were drains. Debris got in the drains. It was never cleaned till it has become concretized. I don't think we need a definition for what concretized means. So, the solution is give them money to dig out all those old drains and relay the drains, because that's going to help. What do you think is going to happen in a couple years after the relaying of those drains? What's going to happen? Here's the proof of what will happen if you dig out all those drains and redo it with a couple million, which might go up to a couple billion, how cost overruns go. Leasing told the Express, working with Jack Warner, who was the then Minister of Works, we came up with the detention pond down at South Quay, opposite to the abattoir there, and we put in the detention pond with the appropriate pumps, and to the best of my knowledge, flooding had ceased in Port of Spain. Until I saw it starting to happen around this year or last year again. Why would a system work and then stop working? Why do you think something like that happens? How does that happen? No, but Anika Nicole, let's give them that. They say it worked for a little while and then it stopped. Why? Anything infrastructurally, if it stops working, it's a problem with maintenance. Somebody stopped maintaining it, or somebody never maintained it. Listen, if your maintenance of the city is as such that debris in a drain, like the first step, this is A, in plan A through Z, in stopping flooding, cleaning your drain is the first step. And you're telling me nobody did that in Port of Spain for so long that underground drains are basically concreted. I can't see giving you more money to be a solution. How are you to tell me this? more money is the solution. How do I believe that? How is that a believable thing?
No, but Nathan, more money to maintain, more money to manage. But that is what we does do. Like that what people does do. Like that what people of any kind of society does. Because America does the same thing, or the federal government tries to do the same thing. I believe they would. I believe what the Inflation Act that the Biden-Harris administration tried to pass, that they allocate what $736 billion, and what they do increase inflation some more. So how did that help? Don't know, but get them more money.
More money.
So they can
And the solution to failure is always more money. Okay, we gave you more money last year. You failed at what you promised you were going to do. The solution to that this year is more money. And when you fail this year, next year comes around. How we make sure that you cure last year's failure is more money. And then we expect somehow to pay our way out of these problems. We expect somehow to get the government to get a way out of these problems that they keep causing. How does that work? I have a hard segue to a brand new topic. Something that has been in the news a little while, and it's still here. And there's some nuance to it. It gets into the gender issues. And it's interesting how they phrase it. Because don't get me wrong, I'm prefacing what I'm going to say here. I am in agreement that victims shouldn't be victimized. But it's interesting how the story is phrasing this, attempting to drive a certain narrative to make a certain image. Children still being exploited. Victims defenseless. Say no police help. 2 teenage victims sought to bring an end to the spread of their underage pornography earlier this year, but advocates say they were threatened with arrest instead. In late June, 2 girls aged 15 and 16 contacted the TTPS Southern Child Protection Unit Division in South Oropouche. They hope to end months of torment at the hands of local predators who had exploited images of their naked bodies and faces among underground social media groups that have since become a haven for the distribution of child pornography. I kinda have an issue with attempting to phrase this as child images, because I think it misconstrues the problem. Child images, the preface of this story gives you the idea that the culprits are adult pedophiles that are snooping around on social media grooming young girls. While the reality is, this is peers, as in PEERS, sending material to each other that they do not keep confidential. It is a problem. It isn't a good thing. It isn't a positive thing. But it's not the same thing as the narrative the article is trying to put. Pictures and videos they were coerced into taking had been shared without their consent by young men whom they had once trusted, and disseminated in batches and circulated and viewed by thousands. Here's the thing. Though this sentence does not make sense. If they were coerced, how are you telling me it's then from young men that they trusted? Coerced means it's either by force or threat. That's what coerced means. Somebody forced them or threatened them.
You know how the word illusion tends to be used now, boy? Like people use coercion to mean a lot of things now.
Coercion isn't convincing you. That's not what coercion has, a direct meaning. And they know why they use that meaning, because coercion is illegal. Coercion is in the text of the legal framework against these things. So to use the word coercion, you know very well what you're doing, and you are not using it correctly. That's not what coercion is. Because in the very same sentence, you went on to say it's shared without their consent from young men they once trusted. Well, Anika Nicole, 100%. Is it possible that someone that they thought they could trust would switch on them? 100%. That is obviously what happened. Someone they once trusted switched on them. Yes. They betrayed their trust. They betrayed them. You might call that revenge pornography and that kind of stuff. But it isn't coercion. It's not the same thing. And here's part of the reason I think they're using this language. They're attempting to use passive language to make it 0% victim blaming. That's why they want to ensure that they have 0% victim blaming as they write this story. That's the reason they're using purely passive language on the part of the young ladies.
So what we're trying to say is that they're utilizing this language in terms of not putting any blame on the young ladies for actually giving away their photos, their videos. I mean, that's fine. I mean, most people would be like, that's... we understand the general consensus of today's society. People supposed to do whatever they want. Just, But I agree.
Hotep, here's the problem with that. People want to do whatever they want, but they want to erase the consequences. To me, that's the fascination of what we call the progressive political view. That's their fascination. Erasing consequences so people have the freedom to do anything they would like. So there's currently an HIV vaccine-ish medication around that possibly prevents the contraction of HIV, and many progressives believe this should be free, so that people who live extremely promiscuous lives could be free to engage in their freedom without having to worry about the consequences. This makes it seem like you're trying to say, yes, these young women were victimized, but we shouldn't worry about their part played. It's all on those who victimize them. But the reality is that's not how life works. It's impossible to catch all of the consequences before they escape. There's no one, there's no government, there's no parent capable of catching all of the consequences before they affect you. That's not reality. So that's why we do the victim blaming and attempt to get victims to understand, if you put yourself in a place where it's more easy to be victimized, yes, we should catch the perpetrators, but it doesn't remove the reality of you already being a victim.
Yeah, to me, I call it a utopic syndrome. Like people believe that, their rights, just because they have rights, they have the ability to do what they want, and nobody should trample on them, which is true. But there's always going to be people out there that are willing to do so. This is why, crime is a thing. I'm saying? Nobody's supposed to murder people, of course. Nobody is advocating for that. But there's always going to be somebody willing to do so. So is it not within my best interest as a human wanting to survival being thing that humans do, to limit that? No. today, people believe that you must be able to rest your baby in the middle of a crocodile pond, and the crocodile should say, no, none of you crocodiles should touch my child because my child has rights.
And if the crocodiles touch your child, you have no fault to take in the entire exercise. It has nothing to do with your decision making. They spread first among the faceless members of the groups, then among their friends, high school mates, and peers. I wonder if this is true. I feel this is vice versa. That it spread among the faceless members of a group, and then among their friends, and then among high school classmates and peers. I think it spread among your friends first, then among your high school classmates and peers, and then it reached to the faceless group. It's your inner circle it leaked out to first. 100%. 100%. And again, reversing the order makes it seem like you were just victimized by a massive group of unknown assailants. Then came the harassment. They were called sluts and bullied relentlessly for months. Let it be known, I'm not saying this is a good thing. This shouldn't happen. The 15-year-old girl, whose name is being withheld, was plunged into anxiety and depression, but fearing that she would be blamed, the teen said she could not tell her parents.
Of course not. If I don't want to tell my parents something that would possibly get me in trouble, obviously it's partly my fault. It does not come on.
You know why oftentimes you don't want to tell your parents there? Don't doubt. Daddy already told baby girl, that fella is trouble, innit? That fella is trouble. Stay away from that fella. Here, but give me a phone. You're banned from the phone. You can't use that phone. And next thing, borrow somebody's phone to send what you send. Those are the reasons oftentimes people don't want it to reach certain authorities. Because if it reaches certain authorities, then your part in the entire thing has to come out too. Daddy will know who the guy was. Daddy will ask you, when you take that picture, I thought I'd tell you don't use that phone after 10. But so, with the assistance of the Humanitarian Foundation for Positive Social Change, 2 months ago, she made a report to the division, hoping that the police could put an end to the exploitation. And here's a question I have. Is this a good thing? That an NGO would take an underage girl that is reporting abuse, go behind her parents' back, and attempt to deal with the police with her? Is that a positive thing? She was afraid to go to her parents because she might have some accountability to face. So she went with an NGO that said, don't worry what your parents might see. Let's deal with this beyond them. Listen. How do we know that they are not predators inside of the Humanitarian Foundation for Positive Social Change? How we know they aren't predators inside of that organization?
Well, given the history of certain NGOs, I mean,
the possibility is high. And then you're taking a vulnerable girl who has already faced some kind of victimization. And for those of us who are big people and don't like to mama guy ourselves, we understand that especially through those years, when someone is victimized, the possibility of successive victimization increases. Big people know this. So the chances are a predator in that group would have free reign. And we're supposed to look at this as some positive thing. You take up 15-year-old baby girl, carry her down to the police station without the parents. So, yeah, she made a report to the division hoping the police could put an end to the exploitation. But this is not what happened, the group said. The foundation, a legal advocacy group and registered NGO that has spent the last few years lobbying for victims' rights and protections against sexual abuse and exploitation, told the Sunday Express last week that officers at the Southern Unit threatened instead to arrest the teen victim. A written report on the event made by the foundation stated that an officer of the unit asked the 15-year-old, "What do you want the police to do?" A further conversation between the foundation and a senior officer at the division that day indicated that the police could lay charges against the victims, as they had created the content, even if it had been requested by and shared with their abusers. Now, isn't that a point? Isn't that a point? Here's a question. If an underage girl creates child material and sends it to another child who is also underage, who is the victim? If someone sends pornography to an underage child, who is the victim? The child who receives it or the person who sends it?
Yo, what is we saying?
Or because boys could never be victims. That's why, of course.
That too, but you know, males have a patriarchy behind them now. But, you know,
Yes, Anika, the creator created it and sent it. Who is the victim?
Yo, I'm laughing because no, the victim is the woman, of course.
And here's how these things are dangerous. And could be nuanced. If she sent it to multiple people, and then she goes to tell the police that boy A is the perpetrator, but she sent it to boy A, B, and C, what then?
The fellas in this situation, well, no, the girl still is the victim.
Of course.
Because we all understand the unfair advantages males have over females. It just is what it is. Especially in this realm, you know, when we get sticky with the sexual stuff, how that plays out within the very narrative of it. But
here's what the foundation said. Officers failed to consider that the children may have been victims of grooming, a separate criminal offense. So then, are you saying, and nowhere in this article did they say that, are you saying that the girls sent the images to were overage? Here's why I don't believe that. Because the girls would know who they sent the pictures to. And if they sent those pictures to adult men, those men would have been kicking in jail long time.
good question, Anika. By who? But you see, this is why I style it as the woman is the victim, because this is how liberal NGOs tend to move. They tend to position themselves like this, right? They make it seem that there's no nuance to be had. The male in this situation is always groomed. Funny stuff. You know, I love to go real kind of crazy with this, but let's be real about the matter, right? Let's be real about the matter. Boys are treated very grown when they reach teenage years one time. That puberty hit, you start to treat 14-year-old boys like they're grown men. Especially of my melanin. You feel me? You know that rules. So yeah, this thing and this is why I have a problem with NGOs, and you know, plenty people love NGOs because it's non-governmental, but at the end of the day, NGOs have their own nefarious interests as well. So the thing about it here for me is that the nonsense of an NGO to do that, to position it as grown men over 18 did this to girls under 18, crazy.
Bro, here's why I think we're real suffering from in the gender dynamics as I look out and that I notice. And I'm a man with daughter. So it's not like I'm biased against girls per se. But it looks like people through the feminist retelling of history believe that girls, women, females were held to too high a responsibility and accountability standard in older cultures and more traditional cultures. And that's kind of true. I don't know about too high a standard, but older cultures held women and females and girls to a higher accountability standard. In some cases, too high a standard. In some certain cultures, if a girl is abused in the most horrific way, they blame her. As in, why you put yourself there? That's insane. That's not what I'm saying. But in modern society that has been influenced by the feminist ideas, it seems like there's an attempt at overcorrection, where now women are never accountable. It's never a woman's fault. If she leaves a relationship, if a woman breaks up a home, then it's what did the man do? If the man breaks up a home, is what did the man do? If there's domestic violence and the woman hits the man, it's what did the man do? If the man hits the woman, is what did the man do? All at all turns. And that's ridiculous. It doesn't help. I stumble upon, as it were, a new genre of YouTube videos, and you know, when you bounce upon one, the algorithm want to send you a couple, and it's like an odd set of content. But police body cameras, and quite a few of them are attempting to arrest women that have just lost it. And you see the extent and the latitude that police give. This woman is cussing, spitting, coughing, spitting on the ground. And you're like, if that was a man, he would have been a strainer already. But it's seen as, well, we have to understand, she may be having a mental break. She may be having a heightened emotional moment. So we have to give some room. Don't men go through those things too?
To some degree, that's true. I mean, listen, if I be real, the bias for women will always be there, and men give women the bias. That's just it.
Yeah, that's true.
And feminists love to use that, and they will never, say it out loud that men are the ones that give them the ability to be radical like they are. For all intents and purposes, it's like, if a man tried that nonsense, he would be dropped immediately. If a woman tried that nonsense, she would be left alone. It's the same thing. It's the same thing where, in any kind of regards to particular things, we give women kind of a bye. So,
yeah.
That might never stop.
And I don't think...
that will never stop, and we can't claim that we live in an equal society if we were to do that. I'm fine with men having a bias for women.
Me too.
Do not sit up here and say we live in an equal society. We don't. We would never be. I don't see it that way. Egalitarianism is a theory and something that we dream of.
Yes.
That's it. Just like utopia.
Yeah. The thing is, it's like when I'm on the road and you see someone driving a real mad drive, and you pass and it's a lady driver. I actually don't have a problem with that. If women drive differently than men, well, she's a woman. She's not a man. I don't have a problem with that. My problem comes when these obvious realities are before us, but then we are supposed to pretend in life that these obvious realities don't exist. So nothing is wrong with society coming down more strictly on men who use physical force in their interactions with women more than women, because you are stronger, so they put more responsibility on you. I don't even have a problem with that. But then the women have to understand that too. You have to be able to accede to the realities that we are allowing here. If it is that a male driver is paid more than you for doing a driving job, you are supposed to be quiet about that. If you are one who wants to be given the latitude to drive like a woman. If you want it to be that if a man and a woman fight, the police come and be more strict with the man, then it should be that we understand in all areas of physical prowess, we leave it to the men primarily. And we don't fight upon that. If that's the case, then fine. And that was the idea of chivalry. The idea of chivalry is that men and women are different, and because of that, there's an expectation that they will treat each other differently. That makes sense to me. But you can't expect an expectation that we treat each other differently when we push the idea that we are all the same out in society. That does not make sense. Those things don't go together. We can't have both of them at the same time. It has to be one or the other.
Well, they try, and some people skillfully try to make it seem so, but they don't. That goes for the people who kind of believe in only speaking about why are there not 50% women CEOs? Okay, why are there not 50% women? Well, you know, women have the choice. Okay, that's the point. Women have the choice. Thank you. Let's like, okay, if we're going to argue why they are not women CEOs in Fortune 500 companies, then you are clearly telling me you only care about women having cushy, comfortable jobs that pay them $1 million and something instead of women having to be bricklayers and.
You know, I think that millennials were the peak of this nonsense. I think Gen Z actually is returning to a bit more sense than millennials. I actually believe that. You see. You see much more in the younger generation talking about living fully in their gender roles. This kind of no gender role, gender neutral nonsense was more of a millennial blip. And the reality is, those things can't stand reality. They can't stand up with reality. Reality smacks them down in their face every time. And this is to make full circle to what we started with, the problem with the communists. This is what smacks them in their face every time. You don't like the reality that some people get certain things more. Listen, life isn't equal. I was born with genetics that would make me taller and stronger than certain people, and there was nothing that anybody could have done to change that. That's a reality of my birth. Life isn't equal. What my parents were able to give me is not the same that other parents were able to give their children. That's reality. There isn't anything we could do about that. And the part that some people don't seem to get to is there isn't anything we should do about a lot of that. Because there isn't anything we could do about a lot of that. And attempting to do something about many of those things creates atrocities to no end. So we don't like, why is it that men must be stronger than women? That's unfair. Okay, you could find so, but there's nothing you could do about that. Men will still be stronger than women. You could go in schools and tell every teacher to teach the boys that actually girls are just as strong and able as you, and no boy is different from any girl. You could teach that how much you want. The reality would still remain. And the moment things hit the fan and the tatter starts spraying, the reality becomes clearer and clearer. There's just nothing we could do to overcome that reality. And that's what the communists have to face. And when we let those kind of mad people, and bear in mind many of those unionists are communists, you let those people in authority,
we can see that.
They will ruin us.
I think what Maduro was a trade union leader.
Union. That's why when you listen,
What the fact that he was a bus driver, that's fine. we don't need politicians to be political.
Yeah.
Major, but is the fact that he wasn't only a bus driver, he was a trade union leader, and we can see where the thoughts come from in terms of.
I don't trust the union.
A regular bus driver that wrote PTSD who become a prime minister would just automatically be. What's wrong with trade unions?
Let me tell you. They are commies. They are communists. They believe in a political system where the workers own the means of production, which is the state owns the means of production. You look at all of the unions in Trinidad, what they're aiming at is the government to own everything and hire everybody and pay them the most they could. That's a recipe for an inefficient system. That's a recipe for an inefficient system. I am not saying that the trade unions had no good or that the trade unions did all bad. I think that, for example, George Orwell, the one who wrote Animal Farm in 1984, some of the most prescient books on socialism and the leftist view, he was actually leaning socialist. He believed that socialism was the way to go. So I'm not saying that everything they do is bad and evil. I'm saying that the political system that most trade unionists believe in would bring us to poverty. Look at Petrotrin, look at Wassa, look at Caroni, and look at them in their closing years and see what the view of the unions were. See, if we listen to the unions on nearly any state organization or company, if we listen to the unions, what would our portions have been? They believe that the state is to keep everything running and find the money from elsewhere to pay them. When the state has to find the money to pay workers that aren't working and making resources of their own, in order for them to find that money, they have to tax it. That's my problem with the trade unionists. And I agree, Kelvin, in the modern landscape, the vast majority of what unions do is obsolete. A WhatsApp group is as effective as most unions could have been. What unions basically did was allowed the workers to have a joint view of something. That's not difficult to do in a cyberspace reality. I'd have you know the laws and court was fought for by trade unions. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying all unions did all negative and everything they did was bad, because there was a certain point in time where the mass communication was as such that though there was a high number of workers that were able to use their labor on a supply and demand structure, they were not able to communicate to allow them to understand the market that exists. To me, what trade unions were supposed to facilitate is the understanding that labor is to be utilized just as a free market resource with supply, demand, cost. That's what unions allowed for. So I could bargain my labor because there's a lack of supply for my labor and there's a higher demand. So now you have to pay me more, Mr. Owner. That's what the trade unions allowed. But that can be allowed now without paying union dues to a communist man.
A modernization of trade union movement.
Yeah.
Does it need one? Listen, unions were formed in a time where it was needed, right? Industrial age stuff, workers' rights and all that good stuff, which is fine. We have those things. I don't think there needs to be a modernization of trade unions. Come on.
Here's trade unions formed to fix a problem. Bear in mind, it wasn't like workers were exploited since time immemorial and trade unions only came about 200 years ago to fix that. That's not how it happened. We were arable societies, farming societies. The Industrial Revolution happened. Trade unions came about in order to sort out the labor practices of the Industrial Revolution. That's basically it. we are no longer going through the Industrial Revolution. To have a trade union attempt to work Industrial Revolution tactics on the IT revolution world, we end up in problems.
But exploitation and workers' rights, that will always be something that would be an issue for the world to kind of...
But trade unions do not have to be the solution to that. Many of these trade unionists live the life of Napoleon and Squealer. I don't know. You can join. Well, a closing just now, Anika. We'll be on tonight. You could jump on. I'm not saying this about necessarily your father. I don't know him. I don't know every single trade unionist. But many trade unionists live the life of those pigs in Animal Farm, where they come and tell the workers, we're here for workers' rights. Workers of the world unite. Let's fight for this. Let's fight for that. While they drive around in BMWs and Benzes. They drive around in BMWs and Benzes.
Ansel Roger, which is the prime guy. Ansel Roger is the guy, right? He is the big honcho of the trade unions.
I don't know if you all remember, there was a time him and Rowley got in a bit of a spat, and Rowley released his wages, and my boy was pissing mad. Rowley revealed, was it 50 or 60,000 somewhere up there? Rowley spoke about it. I was like, no, that's not how much I make. He was angry because the trade unionist wants you to believe that I am but a humble worker like you. Ring the bell, all you. Oh gosh.
Back in the day, do you all know Ansel Roger house looked like? I passed it many times. And yes, he might be driving a brand new 2024, Lamborghini, but his car isn't a Almera. I think what he driving a Beamer or something.
Listen, that has been the role of communists for a long time. They start off workers unite together, and they really mean we want more than you. You see, to make full circle again, the idea that, what the rich have, they shouldn't have, and it should be shared among the workers. These people are envious. They don't believe that it should be shared equally among everyone. They want it. That's what it is. They look at what other people have, and they want it for themselves. That's why those communist leaders from Russia, China, North Korea, none of them go down to live in barracks with the other workers. They prime themselves up like emperors. It has been the tale of read Animal Farm. That's why Animal Farm was written. George Orwell looked at revolutions time and time again, and this is what they do. Brianna, there's a reason for that. As I was famed to say in the earlier lives, there's a biological reason for that.
Trade unions is with the same brush. Maybe not. Maybe there's. I'm not saying there must be one trade union out there that is actually doing the work and they're priming up that good stuff. But if we be the really majority of trade unions everywhere in the world, yeah, it's the same way how every government in the world mismanages money. I'm sure there's one government in the world that manages money properly. Has to be. But majority of the governments, not one government in the world has gotten smaller.
And here's
federal government of America gets bigger. Come on.
Anika Nicole, I will not paint all unionists with one brush by any means. That's not what I mean to do here. But the problem I'm stating is a structural issue with the idea of unions. The idea being that let's all accumulate the power of the workers together and give it to our representatives. And the representative would somehow better utilize this power. And very often what happens is we just change our exploiters. The person who once controlled the masses, we depose them and say, okay, this person from among us, we'll raise them up to control our masses, and they will do it better. And they do the same thing. And oftentimes, they do worse. To be honest, I dislike this modern version of trade unionists in TNT. Yeah, bro, I find trade unions with government work kinda makes no sense. I don't even understand how we doing this. How a trade union could ask for fair pay in the public service? What is fair pay? Fair pay is market dependent. You make what you provide the market with. How we know how much a clerk to provide in the market with? How is the union to say that they are underpaid when we don't even know how much resources they provide into the system?
I guess the government decides that, I guess, that's a price control of itself, I guess. Because we don't know what a clerk is supposed to provide to the general economy of the country. The government decides that.
And here's the thing. If the government decides that anyway, what's the point of the union?
To protect workers' rights, I would want to believe that that would be the main proponent.
But the government has to decide how much this worker is worth. How could the union decide then that they're not making what they would? What's the point? How are we making a point here? What's this? That's what I'm saying. Like, unions in a private company, right? You're attempting to utilize the labor in its free market resource form, and that makes sense. But labor in the public service is not a free market resource. Well, we know that one sun moon set. That, for example, out in the United States, I always remember the candidate that was recommending $25 minimum wages wasn't paying his staff $25 minimum wages. It's the reality. It's just the reality that we face. Hey, people, we're into an hour and 30 in this Hot Sun Live. It was nice. That's all I have for you now. Anika Nicole, as I said, I am not saying this about your personal situation. I have no doubt. Like, I remember there was once some Bolivian leftist president who lived in his little house, and after he left government, he went back to his little 3-bedroom flat. And I believe they are true believers. I believe, especially in the earlies, many of those unionists in the earlies, they literally were fighting for workers' rights. People were some industrialists were attempting to recreate slavery in the modern day, and the unionists were fighting for that. I have no doubt about that. I'm just saying that the incentive structure of the trade union right now leaves much to be desired and leaves track open for Guti to run. And then they'd pressure you for union dues to make sure you join the union, to make sure the Ponzi scheme keeps going. George Weeks, Clive Nunez, Joe Young, etc. I don't know those men personally. I know the names. I don't know them personally. I believe they may have left a lot of positive impact on the country, and for that I'm grateful. Trinidad has a very worker-friendly environment. You could see that the unionists put on real work during the 20th century. Trinidad is worker-friendly. I know many people wouldn't like to hear that, but the reality is we are pretty worker-friendly, and the industrial court is proof of that. All right, people, that's all I have for now. I hear the host in the background. Let me go and meet my host and see what's up. So I'll see you guys again for the next Mindful Live. I think I'll be out here again tonight. I hope you're educated, informed, and entertained. I am Nathan Springer. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you again for the next Mindful Live, hopefully tonight. Until then, people, see you later. Peace out.